Well, hello, welcome back to the next chapter. This time we're going to be talking about harmonization. And we've talked about the DLOs, we talk about the DMOs, but how do you get the data from the DLO to the DMO? Well, great question. That is with the harmonization. So let's take a look at that harmonization in this particular chapter. Why would you want to harmonize? Well, great question. Let's break this into two different questions. Okay, I want you to think about this for a moment. Can you write a very simple SQL statement? Something like select fields from table. Okay, can you do that? Well, I'm sure. I'm not talking about joins and groups and all, but very, very, very basic. Can you write that? At least can you read it? Okay, good. Let's now take a look at the second phase of this question. Can you design a schema to manage customer cases? Think about this for a moment. Let's pause the video and try to write down on a piece of paper the schema for a database that will manage customer cases. Let's put pause on that video, draw it. Once you're done, play it. All right, did you pause it? Good, let's resume. So now that you have drawn that, let me ask you a couple questions. How many tables did you draw? One, because it was very denormalized schema. Three, just like in Salesforce, where you have accounts, contacts, and cases. Probably even more like case comments and case feedback and all that stuff. Did you create more tables? Okay. What were the names of those tables? The one that represents people. Did you call that contact, buyer, person, purchaser, dude, dudette, to be politically correct? What about the fields? Do you have some fields for first name? What do you call that? First space name, first underscore name, F name, FN, right? You start to get the idea. If I ask 20 people to create a schema, I'm going to get 20 different schemas. If I ask 100 people, I'm going to get 100 different schemas. So when you're bringing data, as we talked about in the previous chapter, from a different type of systems, those systems have their own names for the fields. So now that you have tables that have the same data, but the name of the table is different, the name of the fields are different. Let's go back to the previous question. Can you write a SQL query? And the answer is you cannot write a single SQL query. You will have to create 20 different SQL queries, one for each of the different schemas. That is the reason we harmonize. And Data Cloud gives you the Data Cloud model, which basically is a collection of over 900 DMOs. This picture represents the some of the most common or more important objects or DMOs in the Data Cloud data model. But there's over 900 as of today, July 5th, Saturday, July 5th, 6 p.m. There are a lot of different DMOs. And they have different fields and they have some relationships. There is actually, let's go into a quick demo. And let's take a look. Actually, before I do that, you see those links on the bottom of the slide. All right, so I'm gonna go to those links in the demo. So let's switch into this tab over here. All right, and let's go into a quick little demo. So I guess we can close this. I just came back from some errands that I was doing, so uh, I was logged out of the org. So let me log back in. Actually, I don't need the org at this particular moment. So what I'm gonna do is actually get you some links. I'm gonna use the same links that I show you on the slides. The links are here. This is the data model gallery for the data cloud. They are different tables or schemas or models. We have one for cases. We have the data cloud overview. We have the email engagement, the party privacy, the product, sales orders, right? With different types of diagrams. So if we go to a product, for example, we'll see the different objects in there. It's a very complete data model. So it should be able to be used for any type of application you're building. But the overview is this little table, which is the same chart that I show you on this slide. In the org, now that we're logged in, I thought we were. We can go into the data cloud application. And if we go into the data model, we're currently mapped to 11 or 11 DMOs, which are a couple of them are right here. We have the sales order and we have the sales order product. Okay, so let's take a look at the definition of those two different DMOs. That's on the second link that I showed you on the previous slide, which is this page over here. If you want the direct access to this page, we can have the QR code. All right, so this QR code is for this page, which lists all the different DMOs that we have. There is one for the sales order. Okay. Let's take a look at the link for that. So if you want a link, there's the QR code for that. This is the sales order DMO. Okay. And you can read that the sales order DMO is the data cloud data model object DMO for current and pending sales orders. So when a company sells something, whatever the company sells, there's going to be a sales order. Okay. It is a DMO, so it's __ DLM. In a previous chapter, when we're looking at how you can view the data explorer, we saw you can copy the SOGO query, and that was the DLL because we were working with a data lake object. This is a DLM because it is a data model object. We have the category, which is other. I think that's quite correct because I think it's engagement, but it doesn't really matter at this point for us today. It indicates what is the primary key. It's the ID field. It has some relationships. There is one relationship where the sales order product DMO it's related to the sales order where you have a many-to-one relationship, which means that many sales order products are related to one sales order. Okay. Now it also says here that a sales order is related to an individual because an individual can have many sales orders. All right. And this is the list of fields. Now, there's something very important that I want you to take a look at, actually on the next DMO. Sorry. This is the sales order product DMO. What does that mean? The products that were purchased on that particular sales order. Think about a document, print out in your mind a little document which is a sales order. What do you have? Well, on the top, you have your header, who's the customer, the date, address, things like that. And then in the middle section, you have a lot of different lines that says what products, what SKUs were purchased on this order, how many products were there, what's the unit price, what is the total price, right? Think about that. One of the fields is quantity. Okay. Now these DMOs here, if we look for the word quantity, we're going to have allocated quantity, available quantity. We have list price order quantity, fulfilled quantity, subscriptions term, like if it is Netflix or Medium or something you pay 12 months, right? That's subscription terms. So quantity maybe is a field for you, but the field quantity doesn't really exist here because there are 7 different quantities. So what you really need to do is find the object that you're trying to find and then find the description that indicates what is this field means. Don't create custom objects or custom DMOs before you go through this documentation completely. Okay? All right. So I believe that was the demo. So let's go back to the slides. All right. DLOs, DMOs. DLOs are typically denormalized. What does that mean? What does denormalized means? We've talked about it a few times, but let's go into depth right now and talk about it. What actually is denormalized and what is normalized schemas? So DLOs are typically denormalized. And what it is, you basically have one table with a lot of different columns. In this table, in the bottom, we have the orders, which are denormalized. What does that mean? Well, it means that we have information about a customer and what they purchased on the different order IDs. So we have the information about the customer, the date of birth, okay, in one single table. And then we talk about what they purchased. Notice that in this particular case, if we wanted to change the spelling of the name of Alice Johnson or something, we have to change multiple records. So it's actually not a good idea to have your database defined with a data model like this. Okay, that is denormalized. Okay, now there's some advantages of it and some disadvantages. Okay, so the first advantage is that it improved the read performance by reducing the joins because you only need to read data from one table, right? It is optimized for reading, like reports, data transfer is really, really good for data transfers, and that's why the DLOs are typically denormalized. But it requires more storage because now you're storing duplicate values in here and also increases the redundancy, same idea. But it's good for some things like transferring data. A normalized schema, on the other hand, it's now breaking this into multiple tables where we have one table for our customers and one table for our orders. Okay, so now we have only one single alias, regardless of how many times that actual customer exists. So if we need to change the name of Alice, we change it in one single place, not in each row that shows up. Okay, so this is basically splitting the data in multiple tables, minimizes data redundancy because the fields are, or the values are only stored once, not once per record. Ensures data integrity through relationships and constraints. So we can see here that one customer will have many orders. It requires joins. So if you want to bring the data for the customer and the order, you're going to have to do a join. Now, this is optimized for DML operations. Why? Because if you want to change the value of Alice, you do that in one record rather than in 2 records or 20 records or 300 records, right? So it's optimized for DMO. And typically, your DMOs are normalized. Correct. So that's an important aspect before we go into the concept of harmonization. How do you harmonize? Well, here we have the screen that it's used to harmonize, where in the left-hand side, we have the DLO, L for data lake object. This is your source. But in the context of this screen, that can also be thought of being the data left object because it's on the left-hand side of the screen. On the right-hand side, we have the DMOs. As we saw on the previous examples, we're going to break one table, the purchases, into orders and products, right? Products in that particular order. Or purchase product, like how many products of the line items. So we're going to split that, okay? And we use this particular screen. So one DLO can go into one or more DMOs. And there's some train tracks in here. The train tracks are the actual mappings, where if you click on the actual train, you will see that the field account ID is being mapped to the contact point phone. And of course, you can click delete to get rid of it if you don't want it. The fields on the left-hand side, on the DLO, data left object, can either be mapped or not mapped zero times, can be mapped one time, or can be mapped multiple times. We see here, for example, that these fields here are not mapped. These ones are mapped once, and this one is mapped multiple times. Typically, the primary key from your DLO is mapped many times. And in this particular one, it is being mapped 3 times. Okay, let's take a look at that. This is being mapped 3 times. Okay, 1, 2, and 3 times. Okay, why? Well, because if you think about how we're splitting one object, like the purchase, into sales orders and sales order product, then we're going to have that the primary key goes to the primary key. We have that the primary key goes to the primary key of the child. And actually, we'll talk about that one in a little bit. It will make more sense in a little bit. Actually, let's not do that right now. We'll do that in the next demo. All right. So the fields in the DLO can be mapped. We already talked about that. 0 times, once, or multiple times. We'll talk about why multiple times make sense in just a little bit. But the fields on the DMO can either be mapped or not mapped. If they are mapped, they are going to appear right over here. If they are not mapped, they're going to appear under the unmapped section. That you just need to expand that and see the fields. So let's go into a demo and see how that actually works. I'm gonna switch my screen right over here to go into a demo. I'm gonna go into the screen for demo, which is here. I don't need this one here. I don't need this one here. Now for the harmonization, we can either go to the data stream for the contact object, contact data stream, where we'll have this little box over here. Or we're going to have this little box over here. And we see that we have some fields already mapped. Why we have some fields already mapped is because we ingested the contact through a data cloud data bundle, sales cloud data bundle, which if you think about this for a moment, let's pause this for a moment. If you think about it, when you ingest data from Salesforce using the Sales Cloud Data Bundle, for example, then there's some objects that are going to be automatically mapped: accounts, contacts, leads, and a few others. Okay, and it already does some of the mappings for you. In this case, we're seeing that it's already mapping 30 objects, so it already drew the 30 lines for us. It makes a lot of help. And why did it do that? Well, back up a little bit and think about this. We are ingesting the contact from Salesforce. Who created the contact object? It's not underscore C, so it was created by Salesforce. Salesforce defined the object, or S object, and the fields. And it knows what each field means. All right. This is going to be mapped to some objects, including the individual contact point email, contact point phone, contact point address. There are standard DMO objects. Who created those standard DMO objects? Salesforce created those. And they have a special meaning, and Salesforce knows the meaning. Oh, wait. Rewind. Salesforce knows the meaning of the contact standard S object, and it knows the meanings of the individual and other data cloud DMO objects. So it knows what field should we go into what field. So it can do the mappings for us. If we're ingesting custom fields, underscore custom objects, underscore C, Salesforce doesn't create those. Those are created by you. And therefore Salesforce doesn't know what those objects means, doesn't know what those fields mean. It cannot do that mapping for you. If you're ingesting data from Amazon S3 buckets, Google Cloud Storage, Azure, Databricks, for wherever you're bringing that, Salesforce doesn't know what those objects are, what those objects mean. It cannot do the mapping for you. So in that case, this counter, when you start, it will be 0-0. Okay, because the game just started. Now we are 30-66. This looks like a basketball game. Very high score, very high scores. All right. So we can go into the data. Keep forgetting that. We can go into a data streams and get the data mapping. But we can also go into a data lake object, go into the contact object, and we see the same UI. We see the same UI here. Okay, good. Where it is 3066, same numbers and same button. And if you click on that button here or in the other screen, you go to exactly the same place. All right, so let's click it. Let's take a look at what is going on here. We have the DLO, L because it's left, which is the contact home. And here we have the data model entities, the DMOs. We have the account contact. We have, let's see which other ones we have. We have the account contact. We have the contact point address, contact point phone, contact point email, and the individual. Okay. The individual DMO will have things like first name, last name, person name, of course, photo URL, salutation, okay, and actually a few more things, date of birth and stuff like that, right? So there's a whole bunch more of unmapped fields. We can see them if we just basically scroll over here, a whole bunch of them. What it will not have are phones, emails, and addresses, okay, because they go into child objects. All right. So now what I want to talk about here is the primary key for the contact ID. And as you can see in here, it's being mapped gazillion different times. Why so many? Well, good question. Let's take a look. Let's take a close look at that. If I maps to the individual object will have a primary key. Will have a primary key, which is the individual ID. And we can see that that one is being mapped to the contact ID. We can follow the line and we'll get to the contact ID. And that one makes sense. The contact, Salesforce contact, mapping to the data cloud individual. We need a primary key. That's the contact ID. Okay, that's one of the many times. All right. Also, we have a contact point phone. And in here, there is a field which is called a party, which is the foreign key. So the individual will create two records, or the Salesforce contact will create two records, one on the individual, one on the contact point phone. Okay. And if we take a look at this, that is the contact ID. It makes sense that the foreign key it's the same as the primary key for the individual object, which is the same as the Salesforce contact ID. Now, if you look at this also, the same contact ID is being mapped to the contact phone ID. Now, this contact phone ID is the primary key of the contact point phone because we are creating from the contact object, we're creating one record in the contact point phone, only one. Then we can use the primary key from the Salesforce contact as the primary key for the contact point phone. If we were creating multiple contact point phones, we would not be able to use the same primary key, but we're only creating one. Because as we will talk in a little bit later, there is one rule that says that you can map one DLO record can be mapped to one DMO record. It can also be mapped to one DMO record. So it is one DMO record per DMO table. In this case, in this picture, what we're seeing here is that one, let's see if I can do this. One gets mapped to one, gets mapped to one. But if you think a little bit bigger, we're creating two records, but two records, only one per DMO. Okay? Two in total. And actually, if you think about it, it's not just two, it's one on individual, one on phone, one on email, one on address, and one on account contact. So 4 different records, but one record per DMO. Okay? All right. And because we're creating only one record, we can reuse the value. We need a value which is a unique value. Whatever that value is, it must be unique. We already have a unique value. Let's use that one. So in this process here, the contact point phone ID and the party will actually contain exactly the same value, but they mean completely different things. The party is the foreign key that points to the individual, where this one is the primary key for the phone. Okay, so they mean two different things, but they have the same value. Okay, and we can do this because it kind of makes sense here. All right, let's take a look at one more little thing here. We are actually, let's see, I'm gonna close this little baby here. Formatted phone, that one is the business phone, and the telephone number is also the business phone. So we're also saying that these two fields also contain the same value. But that is kind of all right, because if you go back to the business phone, where's the business phone? Business phone. Well, yeah, it's not very clear here. There's actually two lines coming out of here. It starts being a little bit more clear if you take a look at these two lines here. Okay, it's probably they're kind of merged in here, so you don't see that. But if you follow these two lines here, something like that. Now you can see that there's two lines. Okay. All right. What else can I show you? Okay, so how do you map? What if you want to add more mappings? Well, if you want to delete it, you just click on the delete. We saw that. But what if you want to add? Well, let's look for a field that we're going to map. And that is going to be the, let's say the birthday, which is not mapped. It could be mapped. We could do the assistance. So let's map the birthday. Now, when I first tried this, I was dragging the name. No, that doesn't work. So what you need to do is select the birth date or the field you want to map. Scroll all the way down, and you will see. Actually, before I do that, Notice the icons that we have over here. These icons are important. That's a text field. That's a date time field. Uh, we don't have anything else. No, all the same. All right, so let's click there and let's scroll down to here. Hopefully, I got a little bit more here. We have a number field. We have a date field. We have a date time field. We have a Boolean. We have a text field. All right, I think that's pretty much actually all of them that we have. So when you're mapping, the icons must match, which means the data types must match. So if we come down over here, okay, you see that dotted line that just shows up when our mouse is on top of this little guy here. That dotted line, I like to call that the train tracks are going to be on this route in the next 6 months. The government will actually build as the blueprint of what the government will put a railroad on that particular path, right? But with Data Cloud, we're actually so efficient that we don't have to wait 6 months. Once you are in there, and that line only shows up if you have the same data type, you're going to click on that. We already click on the field on the DLO, and when we click on the field on the DMO, we see that the field was already actually mapped, and the birth date goes to, business-wise, probably that doesn't make too much sense that the birth date goes to a death date. Well, but this is just a demo. Actually, that's not correct, so I can delete it. Let's delete that. Okay. So that's how you use that. It's not a drag and drop. It's click, click. The data types must match. And the reason you have so many train tracks in here is because you are going to have primary keys and foreign keys. And you could use primary keys for multiple different objects as well. So many different lines. That's all possible. That's all cool and all allowed. All right. So that explains the DMO. Let's go back to the slides. And let's see what we have next. Oh, yeah. Two very important rules. Rule number one. Very important. Rule number one. One DLO record matches one DLO record. One DLO record cannot go into two or more DMO records. Actually, there's a little typo. Into two or more DMO records. Okay. 1-to-1. What I'm talking about is there's no way of doing something like this, where one record goes to one record and one record. So the problem that we're trying to solve in here, actually, let's back up a little bit. The problem that I'm trying to solve right over here is that I have one email and two emails. And I want those emails to go on the contact point address on the actual email. So which one is going to go? Well, in this case, email one is the one that is going. What if I want to do email two? Can I map email one to one record and email two to the next record, or create two records from that? And as we talk about, no, you cannot. You cannot create one record for email one and one record for email two. You are not allowed to do that. No way, Jose. Okay. So another option, or another thing that you may think that you can do, is that in this case we're doing email one goes to address, and Shoot, hold on. All right. So then, another thing that you may think that you can do, it's that actually take email one and put it on this field, and take email two and put it on the same field. But you can't really do that. So because two fields, the value of two different fields cannot be both mapped to the same um, field, because it's only gonna be, you have two different values. You've got two different values. This is A at pizza.com and this is B at pizza.com. Here we need one address. It's gonna either be A at pizza.com or B at pizza.com, but it cannot be both. So you cannot do that either. So how you solve that particular problem? I want both emails. What do I do? Well, what you need to do in that particular case, and is basically what I have in this picture here, is that notice that um, our customers have two different emails. Okay, so this is a Pinkman 131 at Apple, and this is at Hotmail. This is Gmail, and this is Mail, whatever. So two different emails, and I want both. So what do I do? Well, what I need to do is do a data transform, where I'm gonna take my original table, which has two emails. I'm gonna filter and get the rows that have a value on email one. I'm gonna drop some emails, some fields. I'm gonna also do the same thing for the ones that have email two. Drop some fields and maybe rename and stuff. And then I'm gonna merge all that, and then I'm gonna output it to a different table. So if everybody had two emails, we saw in the previous slide that some have one, some has two, but if everybody had two emails, there's gonna be two n records. If there's n records here, there's gonna be 2n here. Now it's gonna be less than 2n because not everybody has two emails, but you're basically doubling the size of your records right here. Okay, but that's basically what you need to do if you want to map both emails into demos. And this is kind of the idea. If you can see in here that this particular record here with two emails get converted into two records. One single record gets converted into two records. Now, when we were doing only one record, we were able to use the primary key. We were able to use the primary key from the object to be the primary key of the record that was created, because there was a one-to-one relationship. But now that I have a 1 to 2, I cannot have the same primary key because primary keys are unique. So one of the things that the data transform does, and we'll see that in just a little bit, is it creates a value by just writing the word email 1 and email 2. Now this could be like business email, home email, personal email, corporate email, whatever you want, right? Or business address, home address, shipping address, billing address, whatever you want, but it has to be different. So the way we typically do this is that we take the original ID, and we get that, and we concatenate it with some hard-coded string. All right. So once we have that, this fan emails table here, the DLO was generated, and this is basically, this is the table that has a little bit less than two, well, actually I could say less than or equals to 2n, right? This is the table. Now it has only one field called email, and that single field goes to the email address. We also have a primary key, which one is the one that we are creating a formula field for, and that is going to go into our primary key. And then the fan ID, which is the original primary key on the original table, that's going to go to the foreign key. All right. So let's do a quick little demo. Let's switch to this org over here. We can actually close this. We already done the harmonization. There is a data transform. We can look for it through, because there's so many tabs in this particular app. We can, okay, come on. Sometimes this freezes somehow weird. All right, so we're gonna go and look for something which is called transform, a data transform. We have one here. Now, in the examples in the slides, I've been talking about emails. Let's see the same thing, but now talk about phone numbers. You know how many phone numbers there are in the Salesforce contact as object? 5. So this is exactly what we're gonna do right over here. Similar to the data transform that we saw, but a little bit more complex. So we get a contact home. Okay. Remember we saw how we can actually preview some of the data here, and it allows us to view the data that is in a Salesforce. We can do this here. We have selected only a handful of columns. The columns we have are basically the contact ID, kind of need that, and the 5 different phones, and maybe a couple more fields. All right, and we can view the data. Different fields, different values and stuff. We're gonna take those rows that have a assistant, that have an assistant phone, and then we're gonna do some transformation. Let's actually take a look at a little bit closer at that. So here we are looking for the field, the records that have an assistant phone. Okay. Then we do a transformation. Because we're doing the assistant phone, and we don't care about the other phones. We're gonna drop business phone and home phone and mobile phone and other phone. Then we're going to rename, and this is key for this particular to work. We're gonna rename the assistant phone field to just be phone. We want all the phones to go into one column, which is called phone. And then we're gonna create a formula field, which is the assistant, the type, which we're gonna say assistant phone. Okay. This if you start thinking about this, this is going to be our primary key for the object that the record that we're gonna create. We do the same thing for business phone. We do the same thing for home phone. We do the same thing for mobile and other phone. Some records may or may not have other phones. That's fine. So in this case, if there are n records here, there are gonna be less than or equals to 5. And why 5? Well, we have 1 here, we have 2 here, we have 3 here, and remember we have 5 different fonts. Okay, so we're gonna get that. We merge all those tables, append, so we get 5x here. But notice what's going on in this particular table over here. Once it loads, we have a field which is called phone. I have a field which is a contact ID. So the phone field, we have, this could be either the assistant's phone or the business phone or the home phone or et cetera, et cetera. But this is the phone number in one single column. We have the contact ID. A field which is called customer ID. We have a type. Now, if we were to, let's take a look at it. Let's actually do, we can view the data here. So let's do an aggregate where we're going to count how many records we have by grouping by type. Oh, 500. All right. And how many records did we get in here? So if we create a transform, wait, hold on. What just happened? I'm going to create a transform. Actually, that is because I don't want to transform. We're gonna do an aggregate and do an aggregate of the count, the number of records. We get 500. Okay. It just happened that in this data, everybody had, because this is dummy data, test data, everybody has each of these phones. So here we start with, let's keep editing this, and we need to group by, let's not group by. Let's discard this. We already know that there's 500 contact phones, so let's discard that. Here, we see that each of those 500 has a phone. So there's 500 here, there's 2,500 records coming out of here. Okay, 5x. Okay, it just happens that everybody has all the phones. That's because, of course, this is dummy data, random values. All right. So then what we're going to do with that table is that we're going to add additional fields. The field that we're going to be adding is basically concatenating. You can see that right over here. We're going to concatenate the customer ID with the type. I'm using a tool here which is called Zoom It, which it's free. I always like free stuff, but I'm used to other tools on my Mac. This is my personal computer, not my Salesforce computer. Because all of this I'm doing because I want to share the information with you. But if anybody has a better for Windows, it must be for Windows, a better simple. I want it simple. I've seen some that are Epic Pen or something it's called, has like 50,000 different options. I don't want that many. I just want squares, arrows, lines. So if anybody has a better simple tool for doing this type of annotations, I found Zoom It to be, you have to do a lot of strokes to make this work, and I'm not used to it yet. Maybe it's because I'm not used to it. But if anybody has any better tool, please let me know. All right, so we are creating one field, which is basically the concatenation of the customer ID, which is this value with the assistant's phone. So basically we get that, and that's going to be the primary key. That's going to be the primary key for the record that we create. Okay, so that's what we're doing on that particular step. We're adding that. Then we change the names of some fields to make the mapping easier. We change the country, sorry, the mailing country to country. We change ID to party, and we drop the customer ID field. So once we get that, then here we're basically going to be able to map. And when I do that renaming, this mapping kind of becomes automatic because it's basically on the field name. So the phone goes to the phone, party goes to the party, country goes to country, type goes to type, and contact point phone ID goes to contact point phone ID. So having the same names is really, really convenient. And that's basically what I'm doing on this particular stuff over here. Okay, having those names. All right. So let's take a look. And well, let's go back to the slides. Let's go back to the slides over here. And now that's it. All right. So hopefully you like this chapter on harmonization and transformations to help the harmonization, which is actually something that is quite important. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, follow me. If you want to, please buy me coffee, read my blogs. There's links on this page that tells you how to get to each of those things. I really appreciate all your help and your support. The more support I get, the more excited I get, and the more topics I will be creating content for you. All right. So, because this is on my personal time, it's not my part of my job. I do work for Salesforce. This is not paid by Salesforce. This is today's Saturday, and I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart. Just because I like sharing. Okay. But if I like sharing, hopefully you like sharing back, and you share comments, you share links, you share likes, you share subscriptions, you share. Let's try to have a two-way communication. And the more I see that you guys like this, the more I will keep making these videos for you guys. All right. So that's all for this particular chapter. Thank you so much.